I've been working railroad maintenance for nearly 15 years. Long hours. Quiet tracks. A job where most folks assume nothing ever really happens until something breaks. My name's Nate Colburn, and I'm what they call a nightline technician. Translation: I walk the tracks after dark with a thermal scanner and a toolkit, fixing what can't wait till morning. And Gurdon, Arkansas? It's where track weirdness goes to die. For years, crews have reported strange interference on the rails east of the old timber trestle, signal repeaters shorting out, emergency sensors tripping for no reason, minor derailments that don't add up. And the worst part? The light. Every railroad worker in this part of the state knows the story. A bluish-green orb that floats above the tracks deep in the forest, always just out of reach. Some say it hovers. Others swear it moves. And one guy, Danny, a former conductor, claims he saw it pass straight through his cab window without making a sound. The official company line is atmospheric reflection, swamp gas, optical illusion. But I've seen a lot of reflections. None of them ever watched me back. It was a Friday night last fall when they sent me out. Just me, the cold, and 2 miles of woods with barely enough cell signal to send a voicemail. I wasn't nervous, not at first. I've walked Gurdon Stretch before. Creepy? Sure. Dangerous? Not really. But something felt heavier this time. The silence wasn't normal. Even the crickets were gone. I set off from mile marker 119, boots crunching gravel, flashlight scanning ties and rails. Every now and then I stopped to test signal integrity on the repeater pulse. All normal. Then around mile 121, my scanner glitched. Not a little hiccup, a full reboot. The screen went black, then flashed bright white. For a split second, the words, "No destination," appeared in red across the screen. Then it shut off completely. I frowned, smacked the side of the unit. Nothing. Dead. And that's when I saw it. About 50 yards ahead, hovering over the rail line. A light. No flicker. No sound. Just hanging there. Like a lantern without a pole. Pale green at first, then shifting to a deep blue. I blinked. And it moved. Not floated. Not drifted. Jumped. Like it skipped forward 5 feet. I froze. Then blinked again. Closer. 10 feet ahead now. I should have turned around. Radio dispatch. Logged it as visual interference. But I didn't. I stepped forward. And the light. It blinked too. The moment the light blinked back at me, my body locked up like a switch had been thrown inside my spine. It wasn't instinct. It wasn't fear. It felt mechanical. Like something had reached into my nerves and flipped me into standby mode. And then, just as quick, it was gone. The light. The cold. Even the silence broke. A wind passed through the trees and made the branches chatter like bones knocking together. I took a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding and stepped toward where the light had been. Nothing there. No lantern. No bulb. Not even a warm spot on the ground. Just gravel, twisted weeds, and the dark shape of the forest pressing in around the tracks. But something was off. About 10 feet ahead, in the ditch between the rail bed and the tree line, I spotted a shape. Rusted. Metal. Partially buried beneath the gravel. I crouched down, brushing dirt away with my gloves. It was a switch lever. Old school iron cast, like the kind used before electronic routing. The kind you find on abandoned sidetracks, not an active freight line like this one. Except, there was no junction here. No turnout. No branching rail. Just a straight line that hadn't been modified in decades. The lever didn't even connect to anything, no rods, no track gear. Just the handle, the base, and a plate bolted into the earth. And yet, it felt warm. I touched it. Briefly. Just my fingers. A pulse ran up my arm, subtle but real. Like the hum of an old transformer just before it pops. I jerked back. And that's when the trees behind me shifted. Not swayed. Not rustled. Shifted. Like they were trying to make room for something larger than the woods had planned for. I spun around, flashlight shaking in my grip. No animals. No wind. But the light had returned. Farther down the track this time. Smaller. Fainter. Still watching. I stood up, brushing gravel off my knees. I took one step toward it. Then the scanner in my tool belt crackled to life. Just static at first. Then a whisper. Broken. Garbled. I held it up to my ear. And heard my own voice. You were warned. That was it. No other signal. No source. And I sure as hell never recorded anything like that. I shut the scanner off, shoved it deep in my pack, and turned back toward the switch lever. But it was gone. The dirt where it had been was undisturbed. Not a mark. Like it had never existed. Except for one thing. Pressed into the soft gravel was a single boot print. Not mine. Too large. Too deep. And next to it a trail of faint, green light, like phosphorescent oil smeared along the edge of the rail. Leading farther down the track. Right where the light was waiting. The trail of green light shimmered like liquid glow-stick fluid along the rail, dripping into the weeds and guiding me deeper into the forest like a runway for the dead. I knew I should have called someone. But I didn't. The air was heavy now, thick with humidity and something else. Something iron. Something old. After about 20 yards off the rail, I came to a clearing that shouldn't have existed. I knew these woods. There was no map that showed this space, an uneven ring of broken tree stumps and blackened soil, like the aftermath of a lightning strike that no one remembered happening. In the center of the clearing was a mound, covered in moss, shaped like a shallow grave. And next to it, partially uncovered, was a rusted metal railworker's lantern. Not electric. Not modern. The kind that burned oil. It was cracked. Smashed at the side, like it had been dropped mid-run. But even in that state, it gave off a faint blue glow from its broken glass. And then I saw the bones. Not arranged. Not buried. Scattered. some caught in the roots, some sunken into the earth, and all of them too clean for a body left out here for more than a century. The skull was intact, but the jaw was missing, sheared off at the hinge like it had been yanked straight down with unnatural force. I stepped closer, knelt beside the skull. That's when I noticed the collar. Rotting fabric still clung to a metal badge, warped but legible. J. Harlan, Maintenance. The name hit me like a punch in the ribs. Old-timers used to tell a story during lunch breaks, half folklore, half dare, about a rail worker who lost his head during a storm in the 1930s. Some said he slipped on wet gravel and fell into a moving train. Others said he was pushed. But every version ended the same way. His lantern kept glowing for days after the body was found. People said the light wandered. They called it Harlan's ghost. I never believed it. Until now. The glow behind me grew brighter. I turned. The orb was floating in the clearing now. No longer pale blue. It was green again, the same hue smeared on the rails. And it was pulsing. Rhythmic. Like a heartbeat. With each pulse, I heard something. Not sound exactly, more like movement. Dry footsteps. Crunching gravel. But not mine. I stood, backing slowly from the mound. The light moved with me. Not floating anymore. Following. I heard breath behind me. Sharp. Wet. Wrong. I turned. Nothing. Then I looked down. Boot prints. Fresh. Appearing one after the other in the dirt behind mine. As if someone invisible was walking my same path, just 2 steps behind. I ran. No hesitation. No dignity. I tore through the woods, branches ripping my sleeves, lungs burning. Back to the track. Back to the scanner. Back to the one place where logic might still apply. When I finally stumbled out of the trees, I looked back once. The light stood at the forest's edge. Still watching. Still pulsing. And from behind it, in the dark, I heard the faint clink of a metal switch lever, snapping into place. I didn't sleep that night. Hell, I didn't even go home. I drove straight to the maintenance station at West Gurdon and sat in the parking lot until the morning crew showed up. When the chief tech, Daryl, walked in with his usual gas station coffee and half a bagel in his mouth, I intercepted him at the door. I told him everything. The light. The bones. The badge that said J. Harlan. The switch lever that vanished. He listened, mostly in silence. Then he gave me a long look. And said, "You sure it wasn't just stress?" That's the worst part about all of this. Railroad workers don't scare easy. We deal with real-world danger daily, hydraulic failures, wild animals, trespassers, and the ever-present risk of being crushed by a few hundred tons of steel. So when you tell them a light floated after you through the woods, they look at you like maybe you shouldn't be working the night shift anymore. Daryl offered me a few days off. I declined. Instead, I asked him for the old maintenance logs, anything pre-1950. He rolled his eyes but agreed. By noon, I was elbows deep in yellowed paper files and faded ink. And there it was. Incident, worker death. Name, Harlan J. Decapitation. 1931, accident reported at mile marker 121. Body recovered. Head not found. The next page was worse. Report, multiple lantern sightings along the same stretch. Note, unexplained derailment, 3 livestock cars lost. No survivors. I stared at those words so long the letters started to swim. Then Darrell called from the signal booth. His voice was shaky. "Nate, you better come listen to this. The Gurdon Relay Tower is a 2-story shack filled with humming equipment and analog screens that monitor the main line's activity. When I stepped in, the techs were silent, staring at the waveform monitor. The screen should have been showing a flat line. No train scheduled. No input. But it was bouncing. Up and down. Slow, steady pulses. And through the overhead speaker was a voice. Faint. Worn. Almost like a phonograph recording. Track clear. No danger. Switch set to inbound. It repeated every 13 seconds. We ran diagnostics. No mic was active. No engineer logged in. No inbound freights on schedule. Yet the message continued. And every tech in that room confirmed one thing. That's not any of our voices. But I knew whose it was. I heard it before. In the woods. From my own scanner. Darrell tried to dismiss it as a bleed-through from an old radio relay. But I saw it on his face, the doubt was cracking. He gave me the green light to return to mile 121, this time with a junior tech and a camera kit. We hiked in just before dusk. The woods were different. Too neat. Too quiet. Like they'd been arranged. When we reached the clearing where I found the bones, it was gone. The mound was flat. The lantern? Vanished. No trace of disturbed soil. No badge. No bones. No prints. Just forest. But the moment we stepped onto the track again, the light appeared. Half a mile down. And this time, it wasn't alone. A second light. Smaller. Redder. Pulsing opposite. Like a warning. The red light blinked twice. Then vanished. The green light stayed, hovering above the rail like it had the first night, calm, steady, almost patient. I turned to the junior tech with me, Miguel, barely 22, trying real hard not to let his hand shake. "Did you see that?" I asked. He nodded, swallowing hard. "What do we do?" I didn't know how to answer. Because every part of my training said, get off the track. Call it in. Log the anomaly. But some deeper part of me, a gut instinct born from years of night runs and quiet signals, whispered. That green light isn't trying to hurt you. We followed it. Step by step down the track, deeper into the forest. About 100 yards in, it began to drift left, off the rails. We stopped. Because that didn't make sense. The forest on that side was dense, nearly impassable. But the light pulsed. And with each pulse, we saw it. The outline of a path that hadn't existed seconds before. Overgrown and narrow, but definitely a man-made trail. Timber ties half buried in moss. Like a forgotten rail spur that had been reclaimed by the forest decades ago. Miguel hesitated. Dude, this isn't on any map. I know, I said. And we stepped off the main line. The trail twisted deeper into a part of the woods I didn't recognize, and I've walked nearly every mile of Gordon's lines. It was quieter here. Like sound itself was being pulled backward. Then we heard it. A rumble. Not distant. Not overhead. Beneath us. I froze, crouched down, and pressed my hand to the dirt. It vibrated. Slowly at first. Then stronger. Something was moving underground. Miguel looked at me, panic creeping into his eyes. Is that a train? No tracks here, I said. And that's when we saw the red light again. It burst from the trees, brighter than before, hovering directly in our path. It pulsed faster. Urgent. Almost aggressive. Miguel stepped back, shielding his eyes. Then, the green light pulsed in response, slower, calmer, as if pushing us another direction. They were communicating. No arguing. And whatever was underground was getting closer. The ground began to crack. Not like an earthquake or like something was rising through it. The red light lunged forward, forcing itself between us and the cracks. It wasn't just a warning anymore. It was sacrificing itself. The moment it touched the cracked earth, a shockwave burst through the clearing, knocking us back. I hit the dirt hard, ears ringing. When I looked up, the red light was gone. In its place, a hole. Not deep. Not natural. Edges too smooth, like a tunnel bored by machine. And from inside, I heard breathing. Low. Wet. Inhuman. And then a sound I will never forget. A train whistle. But not like any I'd ever heard. This one was inverted, like hearing the echo of a scream backward through time. The green light hovered above us again. It blinked once. Then drifted away, this time quickly. It wanted us to follow. So we did. The green light moved faster now, like it knew time was running out. Miguel and I followed it down the makeshift trail, past broken stones, moss-covered crossties, and twisted trees leaning unnaturally away from where the tunnel had cracked open. We didn't talk. There was no room for talking. Only listening. To the things still breathing underground. The trail led us to a rusted-out equipment shack, half collapsed, hidden behind a thicket of dead trees. No door. No lights. Just a yawning dark rectangle that yanked at your gut the longer you stared at it. Inside was worse. The air was stale, but hot, like a long-forgotten crawl space left under a machine that never cooled down. Then we found it. A hatch, buried beneath the floorboards. Miguel hesitated. This isn't right. No, I said. It's not. But we opened it anyway. The tunnel beneath the hatch wasn't on any blueprint. No utilities. No ventilation. Just raw earth and an old steel staircase descending into complete black. We used our flashlights. About 40 feet down, The tunnel widened into a chamber lined with concrete and half-melted steel. Broken wires hung from the ceiling like dead vines. And at the far end, behind a cracked observation window, was a room. Flickering lights. Monitors still active. A metal chair. Restraints on the arms. A nameplate on the wall. Project Harlan. Miguel whispered, "What the hell is this place?" Then the speakers crackled. And the voice we'd heard in the signal tower returned, only now it was clear. Track clear. No danger. Switch set to inbound. But it wasn't a recording. Because after that line, it added something new. "You shouldn't have come here." I spun, flashlight shaking in my hand, and that's when I saw it. The faceless man. Tall. Uniformed. No skin, only smooth, pale tissue stretched where a face should be. And in his hand, a broken lantern. Blue light pulsing faintly. He didn't walk. He twitched forward, like skipping frames in an old film reel. We backed away, stumbling, searching for an exit. But the tunnel behind us was gone. Only solid rock now. Then the green light reappeared right between us and the thing wearing Harlan's uniform. It pulsed fast. Urgent. Almost protective. The faceless thing stopped. Hissed a low, static-laced sound that made my fillings ache. Then, slowly, it retreated into the wall. And vanished. We woke up hours later. Outside. On the tracks. No green light. No shack. No Miguel. I was alone. And my scanner? Still running. Still repeating. Track clear. No danger. It's been 6 days. They think I wandered off. Heat stroke, maybe. They're investigating. But I've seen the light again. Twice. It doesn't hover anymore. It follows the trains now. Trying to stop them. To warn them. And if I'm right, if that thing is still down there, then Harlan didn't die in an accident. He died trying to seal something shut. And now it wants out.